Hi, everyone. This is the first lecture for psychology class, and this is really just the most basic basics. And that's really going to be how I go for the next couple lessons. Um, Kind of just a brief overview of everything, and then we will go into the finer details. So just keep that in mind. We're not going crazy in depth yet. So, what does psychology do? In short, psychology is the study of behavior and mental processes. What goes on inside your mind, how you think about things, how you process things, and in turn, how you behave about things. Um, Now, what this can do is this can provide insight into why someone behaves and thinks the way that they do. That's really the important thing because we've all have been there. We've all looked at somebody and said, why are they doing this? Or why do they think this? Well, psychology can help us try to piece it together. And one little other little side, um, psychology is not necessarily concerned with curing someone of something. Mainly the thing you have that component, but mainly it's trying to figure out what is going on. That's the main thing. So, as far as branches of psychology, there's a lot of them, and I'll kind of go into these at a later date. But just for the here and the now, there's a lot of different branches to psychology, ranging from just general psychology, abnormal psychology, when somebody is dealing with a psychological disorder, forensic psychology, trying to get into the head of a serial killer, biopsychology, trying to figure out how the human body influences the way people think, clinical psychology, somebody comes in for help, educational psychology, um, where they study, education and how people learn and those types of things. There's a lot of different sorts of psychology, and I barely just scratched the surface of it. But no matter what kind of brand that you're practicing, any attempt to explain why people think and behave in a way that they do will inevitably be linked to other branches of psychology. Because even though they're all different, they're all still kind of tied together. And again, that's something for another day. So, what do they look at? Mainly, there's kind of two main branches. And again, this really doesn't matter which um, kind of discipline you look at. These are two things that they look at. You have your physiological. These are things that have to do with the physical processes of our bodies: sleep, hunger, diet, movement, hormones, anything physical, anything dealing with your meat bag that you walk around in. That's physiological. Then you got your cognitive, and this has to do with all the mental processes, our emotions, our thinking, our feelings, our senses of self awareness, memories, all those things. And what can happen, and this is kind of a truism within psychology, everything biological is also psychological. So and also everything psychological is also biological. So even though these are two things are separate, they feed into each other. So I can take and inject you full of adrenaline. Your thinking is going to be different than if you were calm. I can starve you, and your thinking is going to be a little bit different. At the same time, you can sit there and go, I don't feel good. I don't feel good. I don't feel good. I don't feel good. You say that to yourself enough times, eventually you're going to be refunding your breakfast in the trash can. So these two components, the physical, the mental, they interact with each other. and they play with each other. And because this is a science, we do have the scientific method, and psychologists draw their conclusions, identify a problem, form a hypothesis, come up with the experiment, collect the data, analyze the data. Again, if you've taken a science class before, you know the scientific method, and they use this as well. It's the same stuff, but there's a few little caveats that psychology throws in that we'll delve into at a later time. So, why is psychology important? It's important both as a social science and in the field of medicine. Again, to understand why people act the way that they do and why they think the way that they do. And then again, you have people who have trauma, hurt in a car accident, brain injury. Psychology can help try to understand what's going on with that as well. It helps us understand and explain why we exhibit certain behaviors and show what parts of our brain may be responsible for these. And they can help improve treatments for therapies for people with, again, traumatic brain injuries, mental trauma, things like addiction, and help alleviate symptoms of mental illness. That's actually one thing that we'll kind of be looking at off and on as we go through the course. A lot of things that what people think about things are not complete. Like, for example, addiction. A lot of people are, when they think about addiction, they think about, oh, well, their body is chemically dependent on whatever the source of the addiction is. Like, for example, alcoholism. People who are, addicted to alcohol, the general consensus is, or, at least amongst, society and lay people, is that addiction is the addiction is their body is physically dependent on the substance. Yes, that is absolutely correct, but it's only half of the equation, because there's also the mental component, because they have actually done an experiment where they took some hardcore methods, like people that, they were shooting meth every day, the really hard stuff, teeth falling out, the whole mess. And they took them, put them in jail, because it's illegal, obviously. But what they found, and they did some studies that kind of corroborate this, while those people were in jail, they never had a craving, or their cravings were significantly reduced. So when they were in jail, they were clean. When they were released, they started doing meth again. And the reason for it was because of all the psychological triggers that they experienced not being in jail made them relapse. And again, and I'm as much of a gamer as anybody else. I'm playing Fallout 4 again. Don't judge. And for games, there's actually a lot of psychological ticks that keep you playing, even if the game is no longer fun, or if you have any games on your cell phone. A lot of those are based on psychological ticks, and we'll actually go into that when we talk about behaviorism, one of the kind of bigger schools of thought. But yeah, so again, this is why we look at psychology. Psychology can actually explain a lot about human behavior. And with that, I'll just leave this here. Don't want to get too far ahead. And I will see you next time. Peace out.